special I wanted to share. If some of you folks I know were here 3 years ago, and if you remember when we ended the show, G was our last person, and he did the monologue from Caretaker, Aston's monologue. It was from a show that he had done back when he was in college. And in the fall of 1981, G directed The Caretaker. And I was lucky enough to be casted in the part of Aston, which I really, really wanted. It ended up being a special thing to me because I have a great deal of respect for G, and that was a time when we actually first bonded. It was a bonding experience. The monologue itself it's a long monologue, and it's a very important part of the show. So along with the many, many run-throughs we did in that show, I worked very closely with G, and many times he would sit out in the audience, and I would go through the monologue, and we'd go through it time and time again. And G would say, no, try this. Okay, no, back off on that. Let's do this a little more. And went through that. And it's something that was really important to him because he had done it, and he wanted it to be perfect, and so did I. And here's something that I don't think G knew, but there was a lot of times when we'd be working late into the night, and we would break, and everybody would head back to their dorms and everything, and I would actually sometimes stay behind. And the theater would be dark, and I would pull up a chair to center stage, and the only lights were the ones in the back of the theater. And I would sit there by myself in the dark going through that monologue because I wanted to be perfect, not only for me, but for G, because it was an important thing. Now, that was 38 years ago, and I was telling G last night the impact that the Friars and he and everything had on our lives. So that was 38 years ago when I did that show. And to this day, I can still do that monologue from memory with about a 95% accuracy. So what I'm going to do for you now, I'm not going to do the entire monologue because it's very long, but I'm going to do the very end of it. This is Aston's monologue, and I'm going to do it as best I can. G, you can critique afterwards if you like.
I don't think so.
With the stage direction that G gave me as best as I can remember it. So this is Aston, the end of his monologue, and Aston's talking and explaining about his time in a mental institution. He was in a mental institution, so. About a week later, they started to come around and do this thing to the brain. Everyone in our ward was supposed to have it done. They came and did them one at a time, one a night. I was one of the last. I could see quite clearly what they did to everyone else. They had these things, I don't know, like pincers with wires on them. It was attached to a little machine. It was electric. They would lay the man down, and then this chief doctor, he'd take these pincers and put them on either side of the man's skull, like earphones. And they'd turn the machine on, and the doctor, he'd hold the pincers there, and then he'd take them off, and they'd cover up the man and wouldn't come and touch him until later on. Well, some of them put up a fight, but most of them didn't. They just laid there. One night, I saw that they were coming for me. Well, so I stood up against the wall. They tried to get me in the bed, and I knew they had to get me in the bed or they might damage my spine. So I stood up against the wall, and two of them came at me, and well, I was much younger and much stronger than I am now. So I laid one of them out, and I had the other around the throat, and suddenly this chief doctor, he had these pincers on either side of my skull, and I knew he wasn't supposed to do it. Anyway, he did it. I did get out of there. I finally got out of that place. I couldn't walk very well. I don't think they damaged my spine. I think it was perfectly all right. Trouble was, it was slow. My thoughts were slow. I couldn't quite get my thoughts together. I couldn't get it together. I couldn't hear what people were saying. I couldn't turn my head to the left or the right. I used to have to look straight ahead. If I turned my head, I couldn't keep upright. I had these headaches. I used to sit in my room at night. That was when I lived with my mother and my brother. He was much younger than me. I used to lay out all the things that I knew were mine. But I didn't die. The trouble was, I should have died. I should have been dead. Anyway, I'm much better now. But I don't talk to people. I don't talk to people anymore. And I steer clear of places like that cafe. I don't go in there. And I don't talk to people like that. I often thought of going and trying to find the man who did this to me. But there's something I've got to do first. I've got to build that shed out in the garden.
Hey, Bill, I will never do that monologue again because it couldn't be done any better than that.